Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is Thursday, January 5th, 2023. I'm your host, John June, and of course, this guy to my left would be Greg Penniman, aka G Money. Greg, how you doing today on this fine Thursday evening?
Doing well. Definitely even better. That we getting this more progressing news with Hamlin. He's awake now. But vitals are getting much better day by day. So that's definitely good news. That's all you want to hear is progress. And him getting better to possibly being normal again, getting out the hospital and everything like that. So definitely great news.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, obviously, we haven't been on air since the Buffalo-Cincinnati game, and obviously everyone is aware of the situation with Bill's safety, Damar Hamlin, and I know it was tough, just for anybody to watch. I've played football, I coached it, I've been around the game a long time, and I've never seen somebody have to get CPR on a football field, and the reactions of the players that were on the field, like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Tre'Davious White, some of their reactions, you could tell that something was definitely not right. So, like you said, he's awake, he's alert. He's communicating with doctors and family and friends via handwriting notes. He asked a question. For one of the first questions he asked after waking up was did they win the game? And the doctors told him that he won the game of life. Deep. It was, it's obviously a tragedy what happened, but like you said, if he can recover and continue to progress in a positive direction, that would make everybody feel a lot better about the situation. And he was doing a toy drive. It's on GoFundMe. I think before the game it was at somewhere around $1,200 or $2,500. Last time I saw it, it was over $5 million that have been donated to his toy drive on his GoFundMe. So, definitely a lot of positivity that comes out of such a tragic situation. But moving off of obviously the Damar Hamlin situation, the consequence of that situation in the NFL world was that what would happen with the Buffalo Cincinnati game, right? And obviously there's a lot of things that are more important than football, but we do have to have a reaction in some sense to what happens with the game. And we got news not too long ago, Greg, that the NFL is going to forego playing this game. It's been canceled, so will not be made up. And Warren Sharp put out a great thread, basically kind of outlining the implications of the NFL's decisions. And I haven't read through everything yet, but essentially what it does is it incentivizes Kansas City to win their game this week against Las Vegas, Buffalo to win their game against New England, Cincinnati to win their game against Baltimore, and Baltimore to win their game against Cincinnati. And there's some implications here. Buffalo or Kansas City, they can win. Win for them ensures that they're the one seed and that they would host an AFC Championship game at home versus any other team that's not Buffalo, unless Buffalo loses this week. If Buffalo beats New England and Kansas City loses, then they become the one seed. If Buffalo beats New England and Kansas City beats the Raiders, Buffalo will be the 2 seed, but they will not have to play Kansas City in Kansas City for the AFC Championship game. They'll play at a neutral site instead. So, Yeah, it's just interesting what's going on. What the NFL has done there. Sorry. Lastly, Cincinnati. If they beat Baltimore and both Kansas City and Buffalo lose, Cincinnati becomes the 2 seed. They can't become the 1 seed in any way. However, they would not have to play Kansas City in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. It'll be played at a neutral site instead. So, um, and then a Buffalo win makes Cincy the 3 seed, even with a Cincinnati win. So, anyway, I know that was a lot there. Go check out Warren Sharp's thread on Twitter at Sharp Football. Um, Warren's a great follow for a lot of reasons, but for things like this, when the NFL makes a decision, he has a reaction, and he, can break it down in a manner which is very digestible for all of us. So, the other consequence of that is the fantasy football consequence, Greg. And obviously, a lot of the platforms kind of played their hands early with, platforms like Sleeper and MFL coming out almost immediately and saying, hey, we're not going to include this game in the in the results, the week 17 results, or it's going to stand as is. um, and they also, some of them, Sleeper, being one of them, and I say them because they were like one of the first ones to come out with some communication, at least that I had seen. They had stated that they would come up with a week 17 like rerun results button if this game were to be replayed at any point. But obviously that's not going to happen with the news that we just got. So, I think every situation is going to be different from matchup to matchup. I was in five finals, and all five have been handled differently, right? Like, depending on, I think, where was the matchup, was it close? Was there a team that was far and away ahead, right? Like, I had a team where I basically needed to outscore Jamar Chase and Tyler Bass by I needed Josh Allen to outscore Tyler Bass and Jamar Chase by 40 points. And it was like, there's no way that that would have happened. Like, I went into Monday night like, oh yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe Jamar Chase decides to take the rest of the afternoon off, and Tyler Bass misses every extra point, and Josh Allen's responsible for 5 touchdowns. Like, I would have been like, okay, that's plausible, but that wasn't going to happen. So I just took the loss. Like, I didn't even try to fight it. I was just like, yeah, you won. Like, we distributed the payouts accordingly. But then I was in matchups like the one that you and I were in, Greg, where it was close. And, I think Sleeper gave you a 56% chance of winning before they closed it. And 56% is, you were favored, but not by much. And so how do we determine, that, and then think in terms of the payouts. We handled that the right way, which is we did it 50-50. Greg is calling himself a co-champion. I have yet to acknowledge him as a co-champion, seeing how I had a massive lead, which he definitely could have overcome for sure.
Would have.
We'll never know. So, so, uh, yeah, it depends on, every situation is different. Not every like, there's going to be no perfect solution because this was an imperfect situation.
Mhm.
So whatever solution you go with, it's somebody's not going to like it.
Yeah.
But that's the part that we have to adjust. We have to compromise, and it just comes with the territory, right? So, um, yeah. Anything else you want to add to any of that, Greg?
Yeah, no, just keeping an open mind. Like, this is an unprecedented situation, so like, just I would just have every situation open. If you even want to take it to that, even that week 18 option, you can now. So if it was that close and you want to just do a head-to-head week 18 or cumulative score, that's also an option.
Yeah, man, or do what we're doing, and we're gonna settle do a round and get money on the side just to up the ante a little bit. So
Yeah,
play some
head-to-head
DFS.
FanDuel champ competition.
Yeah,
That's pretty good too. Yeah, that's a
you
true skill. Like, who you can pick in week 18 too. Oh man. Woo.
know. um, All right, let's talking about Week 18. We are going to get into breaking down the matchups, starting with some Saturday football. Love me some Saturday football. Starting with this first matchup here between the 6-10 Las Vegas Raiders, who are at home taking on the 13-3 Kansas City Chiefs, where this game has a 51.5-point total according to FanDuel Sportsbook. And the Kansas City Chiefs are 9.5-point road favorites in this one. Again, they're playing for the 1 seed here. Especially where Buffalo to lose, but they just need to win and they control their own destiny in this one. The injury reports are kind of crazy this time of year. A bunch of guys, teams that get eliminated from the playoffs. Every injury this week is a season-ending injury because this is the last week of the season. So you'll see guys end up on the injured reserve for an injury that could be a sprained finger, and they'll end up on the injured reserve if they can't play because they want to evaluate the bottom of the roster, pull some guys up on the practice squad, and then stash some guys on the practice squad. The same way you probably would do in like a dynasty league or something. So anyway, NFL teams, the injury reports at this time are gonna be crazy. So I'm not gonna list every injury as I normally would, but if there's something major, I will point it out. But in terms of the weather for this game's in a dome. In terms of the injuries, wide receiver Sky Moore, he's out. Wide receiver Miko Hardman activated off the injured reserve, so he's eligible to play. Offensive lineman Joe Tooney, he's limited in practice. And then for Vegas, Darian Butler, the linebacker, he's out. Josh Jacobs, questionable with a hip, an oblique, and a personal issue. So something to monitor there. The Raiders are not playing for anything. Josh Jacobs is in a contract year. Just again, be mindful, pay attention to the news, the reports, all that's going to be very important. Greg, I kick it to you for this first one. Where are you with this matchup here? You, sir, are muted.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna take Vegas to cover, but I'm gonna take Kansas City to win. Kansas City, of course, I really want to win this game. They at least get all the games in Kansas City except one if they play the Bills or the Bengals. So they want to definitely have a easy route to that Super Bowl. On the Chiefs side, Patty, QB1, Isaiah Pacheco coming off a great game. I think he's in borderline RB1 territory. And Jerick McKinnon also in that strong RB2, borderline RB1 as well territory. I mean, he's got a receiving touchdown. Seems like in the past 4 or 5 games now, he's a lock for that. It seems like Travis Kelce, tight end one, probably the tight end one on the week as he is usually. And then on the Vegas side, Jarrett Stidham, I mean, if there were streams of the week at the quarterback position, he'd be the one for sure in this matchup going against Kansas City. Kansas City very, very weak against the quarterback position, coming off a really hot week last week. I think he, continues to show flashes, getting multiple touchdowns, getting close to 250 yards. So I have him as a QB1. Josh Jacobs, if he's able to go, he's a low end RB1. Devontae Adams, a high end wide receiver one, and Hunter Renfro, I think, is also back as well as a upside flex play. Derek Wallen as well, tight end one.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Kansas City to cover, Kansas City to win. On the Kansas City side, again they're coming out for this game. They need it. So Mahomes, Kelce, McKinnon, I think they're all top options at their respective positions. Pacheco, an RB2. I mean, you're right. McKinnon scored in each of the last 5 games. I think it's been. I think that's a feat that hasn't been done in the modern era by a running back to score 5 straight receiving touchdowns or 5 straight games with a receiving touchdown. But again, if the game script gets out of hand, Pacheco can definitely be a guy that can have an RB1 type finish, but I think he's got to be in your lineup as an RB2 at least. Juju, he's a wide receiver 3 for me. And then for Vegas, Darren Waller, he's a tight end 1. Josh Jacobs, he's a high end RB2. I mean, his efficiency's been down a little bit these last few weeks. I know he's been dealing with some injuries, so he hasn't been as efficient as a runner or receiver as he has, and to start the year. But definitely going to put him out there as a volume-based RB2. Devontae Adams, a wide receiver 1. And then, yeah, you're right. Stidham, definitely in QB stream of the week territory. I think he's a QB1 option, seeing that all KC does on defense is allow QB1 performances. The only time that in recent memory that I can think that they haven't was the Geno Smith situation, but he goes in, you look at that game, he goes in without Tyler Lockett, loses Marquise Goodwin, who's Tyler Lockett's direct replacement, at the start of that game. So at that point, it's just shut down DK Metcalf, and you really don't have to worry about much of the offense. So Jarrett Stidham, I think, is going to come into the situation and have a QB1 type performance. I guess the only question is, outside of 2 quarterback leagues, how many managers out there that made it to the championship need to start. Again, every situation could be different, but maybe you had Tom Brady and you're not sure if Tom Brady's going to play this week. So Jarrett Stidham, sure.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's some couple options where you can make that swap.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game here. The Saturday game, 8:15 p.m. Make sure these guys are not in your flex spots for these 2 Saturday games. Make sure they're in that a position spot. So moving on to weather, we're okay there. For injuries, Jacksonville's got a bunch of people questionable, but they're mostly okay. Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans, he's not on the injury report with a hip injury, so that's good news there. And then Treylon Burks, he's questionable with a groin. A few other guys questionable for Tennessee. For me, I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take Jacksonville to cover. I'm going to take Jacksonville to win. For Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is a QB1. Christian Kirk, high-end wide receiver 2. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, lower-end wide receiver 2. Zay Jones, high-end wide receiver 2. Evan Ingram, a top 5 option. For me, Travis Etienne, high-end RB1, probably a top 10 option for me at the position this week. And then on the Tennessee side, they're starting Josh Dobbs at quarterback. We did talk about that last week, whether, it did seem kind of interesting, but Dobbs is starting in this essentially a playoff game here. The winner of this game is the AFC South champion and will host a playoff game. So Derrick Henry, top 4 option at the position, not going to touch the passing game or any other piece of Tennessee though.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Jacksonville to cover, Jacksonville to win. On Jacksonville's side, I do like Trevor Lawrence as a high-end QB2, borderline QB1 option. It's kind of weak. Travis Etienne has been hot the last couple of weeks. I think he's a strong RB2 option with some RB1 upside. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, I think they're both in that wide receiver 2 category. On Tennessee side, I'm with you. Derrick Henry is the only option I'm willing to trust. Unless Treylon Burks is playing, which he's looking like he's trending in the wrong direction. That would be pretty much it. But if Treylon Burks plays, he could be a flex option.
That's fair. Let's move on to these 1 p.m. games. We've got 8 of them to break down. So starting with the 7-9, used to be 7-4, but now they're 7-9. New York Jets traveling to Miami to take on the 8-8 Miami Dolphins. This game has a 38.5 point total, where the Miami Dolphins are 2-point home favorites in this one. The weather is expected to be okay. There's expected to be some light rain. And then for Miami side, Jalen Waddle, he was limited. Teddy Bridgewater, he's limited as well. And then for the New York Jets, a little troubling, but Mike White, who was a full participant yesterday in a walkthrough practice, was downgraded to limited today with his rib injury. So, and he's now questionable. So don't know what that means. How is that going to, what does that mean for his status for Sunday? So we'll have to find out as we get closer to game day. But, definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe it doesn't really matter. But, Greg, I kick it to you now. Jets have a bunch of other guys questionable, but where do you stand in terms of this game here?
I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna take Miami to cover, Miami to win. Um, on the Miami side, it's looking like Teddy Bridgewater is going to be back in there. So I think he's in, streamer
Is he going to be
category.
back in there?
I have no idea for sure, but I mean they haven't announced anything yet, have they?
I thought it was pretty. I thought it was Skylar Thompson, but
Mm.
no, you're right. They don't. We don't really know yet. But he's been getting first team reps in practice. Teddy Bridgewater does have a broken. I think it's a broken pinky or dislocated pinky, something to that effect. So, um,
Yeah, I think whoever starts is a
yeah.
QB2 anyway. As far as the running backs, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, both in RB2 category. I think Jeff Wilson, he gets touches in the red zone, so he could get a touchdown. Mostert as well gets work all throughout the field. So yeah, RB2s for me. Tyreek Hill and Jaden Waddle. I think both strong wide receiver twos with some wide receiver one upside. On the Jet side, Mike White, if he's able to go, we'll see. Is also in that high end QB2 territory, possibly borderline QB1 if they, this becomes a shootout. Garrett Wilson, a strong wide receiver too, and Tyler Conklin could be a streaming option at the tight end position as well. Zonovan Knight is a low one RB2.
Yeah, I'm gonna take. If Skylar Thompson is the quarterback, I'm taking the under. I'm taking the Jets to cover. I'm gonna take the Jets to win. If Teddy Bridgewater is the quarterback, I'll still take the under, but I would take Miami to cover and win. Um, but I did this under the assumption that Skylar Thompson is a quarterback, so I'm taking the under, taking Jets to cover, taking Jets to win. On the Miami side, Raheem Mostert, I think, has RB1 upside. He's been performing really well these last few weeks. Jeff Wilson Jr. and RB2 with some RB1 upside. Tyreek Hill, I think he's just going to get his touches and his volume. I think he's a wide receiver one. I know last time he didn't have great numbers against the Jets, but they lost Teddy Bridgewater on like the first snap of the game for Miami, and it was Skylar Thompson from there. So playing with a third string quarterback on short notice, I think had more to do with that than the Jets actually stopping him. So I think Tyreek Hill is a wide receiver one. Jalen Waddle, a wide receiver three. And then for the Jets, really for me, it comes down to just Garrett Wilson. I think he's the only piece you can trust. He's going to get targeted regardless of who the quarterback is, and he's a good player that is going to make the most of his opportunities most of the time. So I do agree with you, Conklin. Maybe in DFS or deeper leagues, I think he's an option. I'm not touching the running backs. Last week they turned it into a full committee. We saw Ty Johnson getting reps, and then Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter, pretty much got eliminated from that committee as well. So it was just like that backfield seems to be a mess, and it's not something that I'm gonna look to in championship week this week. Let's move on to the 7-9 Cleveland Browns traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the 8-8 Pittsburgh Steelers. This game has a 40.5-point total, where the Pittsburgh Steelers are 2.5-point home favorites. In terms of weather, the weather's okay. There's potential precipitation in this game. In terms of injuries, Amari Cooper, he's been dealing with the hip injury that he's been resting, so he's questionable. Miles Jack for Pittsburgh, as well as Minka Fitzpatrick for Pittsburgh. They were both DNPs on Thursday. So that's a hit there to the Steelers defense. But I am going to take the under here. I am going to take the Steelers to cover. I will take the Steelers to win. On the Cleveland side, Deshaun Watson is a quarterback 2 for me this week. Amari Cooper, a strong wide receiver 2. I couldn't even tell you where Nick Chubb has been finishing, but I know I've been ranking him in like the 20s and the 30s. So today he's an RB3 for me this week in PPR leagues. Just has not been, the touchdowns haven't been there. The volume hasn't seemed to have been there to the extent that it was early in the year. Njoku has a nice matchup, but he's been disappointing these last few weeks. But this matchup is really nice against Pittsburgh. So I think if you need help or you're desperate or you need some upside, I think he definitely is an option. For on the Pittsburgh side, Najee Harris, he's an RB1. Deontay Johnson, a wide receiver 3. Pickens is always in line to catch a touchdown, but I think at best he's probably a wide receiver 4 or 5 with some touchdown upside. And then Fryer, I don't know why I always forget Fryermuth. Fryermuth is a tight end 1 option.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Pittsburgh to cover, Pittsburgh to win. Uh, on the Cleveland side, Sean Watson, Pittsburgh's really good against quarterbacks, so I think he's in that QB2 territory, high in QB2 territory. Nick Chubb, think solid RB2 as well. Mario Cooper, wide receiver 2. Thomas Peoples Jones can be low end flex option. David, and as far as Pittsburgh side, uh, Najee Harris, come off his best game of the year. Cleveland has a really good rush defense as well. I think he's in that RB2 territory. I would rank him. Deontay Johnson, hopefully could bounce back from last week. See him still rate him as a wide receiver 2. Pratt Freiermuth also still in that tight end 1 territory, but the matchup is tough as well. Cleveland, it should be definitely a dogfight. Another divisional game. Last game was pretty low scoring. It should be the same.
Yep. All right, let's move on to this next game here. Talk about a snooze fest. Uh, we got the 2-13-1 Houston Texans traveling to Indianapolis to take on the 4-11-1 Indianapolis Colts. This game has a 38.5 point total, where the Indianapolis Colts are 2.5 point home favorites in this one. In terms of whether this game's in a dome, in terms of injuries, there's a few guys questionable for the Colts. A few guys questionable for Houston. For the Colts, however, slot cornerback Kenny Moore was placed on injured reserve. Tight end Kylan Granson, I think, was trying to make a return. He was a DNP. And then Nick Foles, he is out with a rib injury. So Sam Ehlinger will get the start. Greg, I'm anticipating this will be short and sweet, but I kick it to you. Where are you with this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under, but I'm gonna take Houston to win. Houston to cover. Houston to win. Yeah, Davis Mills, I think is just better than Sam Ehlinger. I think he gets some opportunities down the field. So I'm looking at the receivers really. Brandon Cooks and Chris Moore. I think they're both in that wide receiver 3, some wide receiver 2 upside. And that's really who I'm looking at on the Houston side. On Indy side, it's really just Michael Pittman Jr. and that's really it.
Yeah, I am going to take the under. I'm also going to take Houston to cover. I will also take Houston to win. On the Houston side, Brandon Cooks, I think, is a strong wide receiver 2. Chris Moore, a wide receiver 3 or 4. And then on the Indy side, I'm actually into Zach Moss because
Oh yes,
Houston's
you're right.
run
Zach Moss.
defense.
Zach Moss is actually a great option this week. Yeah,
Yeah, so he's
he
an
finished as
RB2 for
RB1.
me. I don't know if I can go with Pittman. I don't know if I had the stones to do it just because Sam Ehlinger's so bad. So bad.
Yeah. I mean, Pittman's been pretty consistent all year, at least. But yeah,
I
no,
think
it's
Pittman
tough.
is a great buy low option in dynasty leagues, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Because if
absolutely.
they can just get a quarterback,
Give me Derek Carr on the Colts. Yeah, he'll be slinging it down all the way to easy 1,000-yard season.
yeah. All right, let's move on to this next game. The 8-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Atlanta take on the 6-10 Atlanta Falcons. This game has a 40.5 point total, where the Atlanta Falcons are 4.5 point home favorites. And no, I did not misspeak. The 6-10 Atlanta Falcons are 4.5 point favorites against the division champion 8-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That kind of leads me to believe Vegas knows Tampa Bay is not going to play their starters or will not play their starters for the majority of the game, but that's purely speculation on my part. This game is played in the dome, so no weather concerns. In terms of injuries, Tampa Bay, like half the team is on the injury report. I'm not going to list it, but yeah, Atlanta, they're okay in terms of injuries there. For me, I'm going to take the under. I will take Tampa Bay to cover 4.5, but I will take Atlanta to ultimately win the game here. On the Atlanta side, Tyler Algier, I think he's an RB2. Patterson is an RB4. Drake London is in a really, really good spot here. So, I'll probably have him down as a wide receiver 2. And on Tampa Bay side, I'm not sure if you can trust their pieces, as they don't need to win this game at all. They've clinched the division. The fact Atlanta is favored kind of implies that you probably shouldn't lean on these options. Again, based purely on the matchup, I like the pieces, from Brady to Godwin to Evans, to the running backs. I like the pieces, but I don't know what their playing time or the volume is going to be. So pay attention to the news, but I would not count on any Tampa Bay pieces.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Tampa to cover, but Atlanta to win. On the Atlanta side, Tyler Algier, I still think he's a strong RB2 with some RB1 upside. Drake London, wide receiver 2 as well. And yeah, I agree with you on the Tampa side. So I mean, really, I would trust if you want to do a dart throw with Shad White. I think will be an interesting play that he should get a lot of time and a lot of work in this game.
Yeah, I think he's the only guy that would make any sense.
Yeah.
But then it's like, do they think he's too important?
Oh,
Like, they're like, oh, playoffs to come
Keyshawn
in,
Vaughn?
like
Oh man.
give Keyshawn Vaughn or Giovanni Bernard like all the carries in the world. Like, I don't know. Oh man, Giovanni Bernard in championship week.
Oh, it's crazy.
All right, let's move on to this next matchup. Staying in the NFC South, the 6-10 Carolina Panthers traveling to New Orleans to take on the 7-9 New Orleans Saints. This game has a 41.5 point total, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, where the New Orleans Saints are 3.5 point home favorites in this one. Game is played in a dome, so no weather concerns. Carolina is okay in terms of injuries. For New Orleans, tight ends Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson, they're both limited. Taysom Hill with a back, Juwan Johnson with a quad. A bunch of other guys questionable on that side as well. Greg, I kick it to you. Where do you lean with this matchup?
Yeah, give me the over actually. Give me the Saints to cover and the Saints to win. Um on the Saints side, Taysom Hill, this is his game right here. All about it for sure. Definitely continue to be I think upside of tight end 1, but I think he's gonna definitely hit that in this week. Alvin Kamara, RB2 territory. And as far as the receivers, I'm all about Raheem Shaheed. Last 5 weeks, his man's been a solid low wide receiver 2. I think he continues to be in solid wide receiver 2 territory. And on the Carolina side, Sam Darnold, I think, is also still in streaming territory as far as the quarterback position. The running backs, Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, I think, are both in RB2 territory, and DJ Moore is a strong wide receiver too.
So is his name Raheed or Rashid?
Rashid Shaheed, sorry.
Rashid
Yeah.
Shaheed. Okay. For me, I also am doing the same thing as you, where initially I was going to pick the under, but I'm actually going to go with the over here. When I looked, doing more like looking into the matchups and saw these quarterbacks both are in decent spots here, especially the New Orleans quarterbacks. Yeah, I just could see this game going over in a dome, good environment. So give me Atlanta or give me New Orleans to cover. Give me New Orleans to win the game. For Carolina, I think again, like I said, New Orleans is tough against quarterbacks, but I do like this game to go over, as do you, Greg. So I think Sam Darnold is a QB1 option. DJ Moore, a wide receiver 2. Sam Hubbard is an RB3, as is Foreman. And then for New Orleans, I think Andy Dalton has a great matchup, possibly potential QB1 here in this, QB1 option in this matchup. Chris Olave, he's a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Rashid Shaheed, I think has big playability as well. Has been involved in the offense, so he's a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and then Jawan Johnson, I think, is a tight end one option. Taysom Hill, obviously, you can break out the emergency glass. I mean, he had 14 rush attempts last week. So if he replicates that, gets around the goal line, he's definitely an option to score a touchdown for you at the tight end position.
He's more than the emergency glass tight end now. He's a, like, gotta play him, yo. Tight end, yo. Gotta play this man.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely. I think the last few weeks, and this is purely speculation on my part, like, have they ramped up the usage because they were trying to, win their division? Like, with the division being out, are they no longer saying like, oh, we got to use the Taysom Hill packages to, again, Dennis Allen could be trying to, obviously establish a culture in his first year that winning is winning, and so maybe use Taysom Hill. But yeah, again, if his role is what it's been these last few weeks, I agree. He's more than the emergency glass type of a tight end. He's got to be in your lineup. But if you have Jawan Johnson and Taysom Hill, that must be the most frustrating start-sit decision.
Oh yeah, every week actually.
Yeah. So, let's move on to this next matchup. The 8-8 New England Patriots traveling to Buffalo to take on the 12-3 Buffalo Bills, where this game has a 42.5 point total, and the Buffalo Bills are 7-point favorites at home. In terms of the temperature or the weather here, there's expected to be freezing temperatures for this game, but for the most part, no wind. Should be pretty, no precipitation, so just cold. For the Buffalo side, Josh Allen, he's questionable with an ankle and a right elbow injury. Dawson Knox, he's limited with a hip. And then there's a few other guys questionable for Buffalo. For New England, there's a bunch of guys questionable, including Jacoby Myers, who's dealing with a shoulder. In terms of the matchup here, I will take the under. I will take New England to cover the 7, but I'll take Buffalo to ultimately win. Buffalo can, like I said, get the 1 seed with a win and a Kansas City loss. So I think they're obviously going to give it their all for this game here. For the Buffalo side, Josh Allen, he's a high-end QB1, probably the QB1 if all goes well. Stephon Diggs, a wide receiver 1. Gabe Davis, I think, has wide receiver 2 upside. Devin Singletary and James Cook, they're both RB3s for me in this one. Dawson Knox, he is a tight end 1 option. And on the New England side, Ramondre has been disappointing these last few weeks, but if New England's going to make this a close one, he's got to be involved, as does Jacoby Myers, who I have down as a wide receiver 3. Ramondre probably going to be a wide receiver or an RB2 for me on the higher end, middle to high RB2.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take New England to cover, but Buffalo to win. I think they're definitely going to come out, try to get this 1 seed, play inspired actually, and get this win. Josh Allen, QB1 option. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 1 option. Devin Singletary, and James Cook, I think are both RB2 plays. And also on the New England side, Ramondre Stevenson, he's close to that 1,000 yards rushing. I'm sure he wants to get that for sure. I think I'm gonna rate him as a RB2. But he could always pop up to be the RB1. He was pretty much all year past before the last 2 weeks. And then Jacoby Myers is the pass catcher I'm really only targeting as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to this next matchup here. The 12-4 Minnesota Vikings travel to Chicago to take on the 3-13 Chicago Bears. This game has a 43.5 point total, where the Minnesota Vikings are 7.5 point road favorites. In terms of weather, we're okay. In terms of injuries for Chicago, Justin Fields, I mentioned it at the top. He is out with a hip injury, so he will not play in this game. Nathan Peterman will get the start for the Chicago Bears. Some guys have been added to injured reserve. Uh, like I mentioned before, for Minnesota, 2 offensive linemen were added to the injured reserve. Jonathan Bullard, a defensive end, he was also added to the injured reserve, and then Garrett Bradbury, a third offensive lineman for the Minnesota Vikings. He is doubtful for this game. So Minnesota going into this game down 3/5 of their offensive line. Greg, I kick it to you now. Where are you with this matchup here?
I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Chicago cover, but I'm gonna take Minnesota to win. On the Minnesota side, Kirk Cousins should be a QB1 in this matchup. The matchup is really juicy. Chicago's on the perimeter is really weak, so he should be back to QB1 performance. Dalvin Cook, our RB1, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1. This entire offense should bounce back. KJ Osborne, I think, has flex upside in this one as well, and TJ Hawkinson, a high end tight end 1 on Chicago side. No Justin Fields, so yeah, this is probably one of those situations where you can pivot to a Jarrett Stidham kind of in this offense, and um, not Devin Singletary. David Montgomery is a RB2. The receivers is going to be hard to trust, without Justin Fields, and probably could find some other options. So I'm gonna just look at David Montgomery.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take Minnesota to cover, Minnesota to win. For Minnesota, all the primary pieces, they're all top options. Like you said, Cousins in a great spot. Justin Jefferson also in a great spot. Also chasing that record. Still needs 200, about 190 receiving yards after Jair Alexander held him to 15 last week. Dalvin Cook has not been great up to this point. There's a strong chance if you are a Dalvin Cook manager that you did not make it because he's been that pedestrian. But this is a fantastic spot for him this week. TJ Hawkinson also in a great spot. KJ Osborne, I think, has wide receiver 2 upside. And then on the Chicago side, I'm in agreement. I can't play anybody. David Montgomery is the only one I can really trust, and so I'll have him down as a volume based RB1 in this one because the matchup is good for him as well. It's just situation kind of stinks.
Yeah.
Moving on to our last 1 p.m. matchup of the evening here because we are live. And if you are watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, we appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff as well. Definitely appreciate it. But yes, as we record this evening, the last matchup we're going to cover, the 10-6 Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 11-4 Cincinnati Bengals. This game has a 40.5 point total, where the Cincinnati Bengals are 7-point home favorites. As we mentioned, Cincinnati Bengals can get their way into the 1 seed. There's just obviously, they need some help in order for that to happen. But there is Cincinnati cannot become the 1 seed. My apologies. Cincinnati can't become the 1 seed. They can only become the 2 seed, but they would need both Buffalo and Kansas City to lose, and they would need to beat Baltimore. So this game is incentivized for them. And then Baltimore, I think, has an incentive as well. Yeah, I'd have to look into that later. But Baltimore does have some incentive. I think they're possible that they could win the division. I don't know if that's how likely that is, but I think it's plausible. But anyway, In terms of the matchup here, there's possible rain in this game. Lamar Jackson most likely out for the Baltimore Ravens. Tyler Huntley, he's dealing with a shoulder and a wrist. He's limited. Deshaun Jackson, the wide receiver, he's dealing with an illness. He's questionable. And then for Cincinnati, Lyle Collins, the offensive tackle, was added to the injured reserve. For this game, I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take Baltimore to cover the 7, but I'll take Cincinnati to win the game. For Baltimore, real easy. Mark Andrews is a tight end 1. J.K. Dobbins is an RB3. On Cincinnati side, Joe Burrow, he's a QB1. Jamar Chase, a high-end wide receiver 1. T. Higgins, a high-end wide receiver 2. Joe Mixon, an RB2. Don't think I'm going to go after the auxiliary pieces like Hayden Hurst or Tyler Boyd in this matchup. But, if you're desperate, you could look to a good offense there in Cincinnati for some help. But again, I'd rather stick to the main pass catchers and options there.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under as well. Baltimore to cover, but Cincinnati to win. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow still QB1. Joe Mixon, agree with you. RB high in RB2 with some RB1 upside. Jamar Chase still wide receiver 1. T. Higgins strong wide receiver 2. And Boyd could possibly be a low end flex, but I think the Baltimore's defense has been playing better of late. On Baltimore side, it's really hard for me to trust anyone but Mark Andrews, and he's back on the radar for sure as a tight end 1.
Yeah. All right, well, that pretty much wraps up our part 1 preview. Obviously, that means that there's a part 2, and that means we still got to do starts to the week and close out some get money. So, make sure you come back on Saturday. Doing all that stuff. Again, we appreciate you guys. If you hopefully were able to close out week 17 and you're not playing in the week 18 championship. But if you are, we're here to help you do that. We're here to help you take that down. Or maybe you just like hanging out with us, because why wouldn't you want to come here and hang out with, 2 handsome looking guys as we discuss some fantasy football. So that being said, y'all, have a good one. Enjoy Saturday football, but we'll talk to you by Saturday. So I'll say that again then too. So anyways, I'm rambling. Have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.
Yeah.